Kia ora, good afternoon. Um, I was asleep because I'm sleeping a little bit because I'm dealing with a bit of pain, and I sleep when I'm in pain, but it's my defense mechanism. I think is my body shuts down so that I can sleep through the pain. Because obviously I'm allergic to everything, and I have no way of dealing with the pain. I don't know what's caused it. I think I maybe possibly am no longer able to take antihistamines because the only thing I've done over the last couple of days is took antihistamine, and then all of a sudden I was getting pain. That's all I can think. But anyway, um, I was asleep. I got woken up, but I was waiting for a delivery anyway, and I started just mucking about waiting for my doorbell to go, and I fell onto this case with the missing persons case of Jeremy Lawrence from Mountain Iron, Duluth, Minnesota. And at first, I wasn't going to pick it up. At first, I thought, I don't think this is going to lead anywhere. And then the more I started listening, the more I started getting, and then I started doing some digging, and found some interesting connections. And if his mother Debbie is out there, I'm I'm so sorry. I'm gonna tell you exactly what I think happened. Um, and I wish I could say that he just ran away, but I've had a look at the evidence. I've connected some dots, and I think it's interesting to know. And I think that it would be a miracle if she ever saw him again, and that she possibly needs to prepare for the fact that she may never get to bury her baby. I'm trying to look into that side of it though, and it seems more important that I get the facts out there for him right now. I'm only going to tell you exactly what I uncovered. I'm only going to tell you what I feel, what I see, based on the codes that were fed to me. Take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, this is my opinion on what I think happened to him on the 20th of August 2023. He was 39 years old. He went, and it's interesting as well that some people reported he went to visit a friend in hospital, but it was the mother of his child. She'd just given birth to their daughter, so not quite a friend. He went to visit his newborn baby and his girlfriend in hospital. She'd just given birth to their daughter, and his car wasn't working. His car was broken down, so he took his ATV and drove it 70 miles with a backpack and a milk crate strapped to the front, and off he went. He visited his baby mama and his baby in the hospital. He was texting his mother throughout the whole thing. And a couple of things he mentioned, other than "I'll be home soon, I'm leaving now," was that "I can't wait to be rid of these people. Can't wait to get away from these people." And then the last call she had from him, when she wasn't hearing from him, she was ringing, 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 ringing. He answered the phone and snapped at her and said, "Quit calling," and hung up. And then she never heard from him again. And then his phone was switched off from about 11 o'clock at night, I believe. And she never saw her son again. I've been looking at the crime rate in Mountain Iron, Duluth, Minnesota, and the surrounding areas. and they have a problem with murders, kidnappings, and drug related crimes, drug trafficking. And Jeremy had an issue at one point with methamphetamines. And what I was guessing was based on the statistics, based on arrests that happened in and around the Duluth surrounding area, is that he needed to make some money. He had two kids to somebody else, he had a newborn baby, his car was broken, he was broke, and he needed to find a way to make some quick cash. And one of the drug cartels that was arrested where the drug dealer, the drug leader was arrested. Um, he was arrested. One of the crimes he was charged with was trying to solicit people to transfer drugs around Minnesota and the surrounding states and they're on their behalf between Colorado and Minnesota. Now, this is important because you remember the investigation I did into Brandon Swanson, who went missing in Minnesota. And the last thing his brother heard, I think it was his brother or his parents heard on the phone was, oh shit. And then the phone went dead. And I said he walked into a drug bust. He walked into a drug deal because this drug dealer that was just recently arrested and charged that was looking for drug mules, just like Keesley Roberts and Caleb Smith when they went missing. Um, he was looking for people and specifically in remote areas, in farm areas and mountainous areas, um, to be drug mules for them, which fits in with the Brandon Swanson thing as well. Looking for remote areas, and he was specifically looking for mules in mountainous areas. And two other men went missing in the with like I've put links in the description box below under eerily similar circumstances. One of them was having money problems, was having a lot of deep financial issues and was stressed. One of them was like had early onset Parkinson's or something, and apparently one of the last conversations that people had with him, he was inordinarily snappy, just like Jeremy was. And I think what happened was he went down to do this transfer with whatever was in his backpack, and with the constant phone ringing and the phone constantly going off, I think it spooked the dealers. I think it spooked the drug dealers, and they thought maybe he was a plant or undercover or something like that, which is why Jeremy snapped and said, "Quick calling." I think he thought it was going to be a brief transaction, but because of the constant phone calls, because of the constant texting, apparently a lot of people were hitting him up, and I think it spooked the drug dealers. Now, if he wasn't a mule, he maybe was going to be sent out to sell drugs, and one of the reasons why his phone blew up all of a sudden was people looking for meth. This drug dealer in particular was known for transporting and looking for mules and dealers in that to sell meth and fentanyl. And I think his phone going off constantly spooked the dealer. And so they made the decision to hold him, hold him, and took his phone off him to see who was hitting him up. But when I try and focus on what actually happened to him, I don't necessarily think although it just I'm not seeing injuries. I'm seeing foaming at the mouth. I'm seeing I was seeing like seizures and stuff. They could have hit him. They could have done something to his head where he was foaming at the mouth and seizing. But I'm wondering whether they forced him to take something like fentanyl to make it look like an overdose, and then removed his body, or if they hit him, because I just a lot of people are saying that wasn't him on the video driving the ATV because he was wearing shorts and he had originally been wearing jeans. But if he was visiting his missus in hospital, he probably, because it sounds like he was raised a little bit proper. He was, close to his mum and that. I'm wondering whether he switched to shorts to show he wasn't hiding any weapons, or to show that he could be trusted, because there's a real sense of they weren't sure if they could trust him. They were nervous about whether they could trust him. Whoever put him onto them or put them onto him, there was some uncertainty about trust. And I really think the first thing I thought when they were saying about switching from jeans to shorts is because the jeans was because he was going to visit his missus in hospital. So it was a bit more formal. And then he switched to shorts to go to the lake to do this transfer or to pick up his supply. And I think the way that his phone blew up all of a sudden with all these people ringing him out of nowhere, I think some of these people knew that he'd been telling people he was going to get some stuff and that he'd be available to sell them or something like that at a certain time. Because the reports say that these people started hitting him up. Just his the term was his phone blew up, and I think it made these people nervous because there was already trust issues. What guy turns up on an ATV in shorts, you know, just yeah. And I think they made the decision to remove him. He spooked them. And just like with the other two guys in the post that they're talking about, three men missing, in the northern area, the north end, I think they said, under similar circumstances. I think it's pretty much the same thing. I know people in my own personal life back home, when they had money troubles, the quickest way to make fast money, but a lot of it, is to sell a bit of weed, sell a bit of this, sell a bit of that, and it's usually fine. They get to pay off their debt, they get to buy their new car, fix their car, whatever, and everything's fine. But I knew quite a few guys who back home who when they started having their kids, they knew they needed to make some quick money, and that's the quickest way to do it. And Jeremy had connections to methamphetamine and drug taking and that anyway. And I'm just wondering whether he went to somebody in connection to where he used to get it from. Do you know how I can make some quick money? Well, yeah, I do. Because this one particular dealer, and I have put his trial link in the description box, that one of the things that he was charged with was trying to find people in the mountainous areas and the remoter areas who would help transfer the drugs for him. And I think that's what him and the two other men that went missing got involved in. And I think with Brandon Swanson, I think he stumbled into a transfer. Now, the interesting thing is, the mother keeps saying she doesn't understand why the police aren't doing anything. And it appears that in Minnesota and like around that mountain Iron area, they have a bit of an issue with the police being a tad bit corrupt. So it might be just like with Keesley Roberts and Caleb Smith, that the police are paid to turn a blind eye, and they'll get paid good money to just not notice anything on purpose. In the case of Brandon, I did wonder whether it wasn't cops that were involved in the transfer, but nonetheless, it backs up my investigation into Brandon, and it helps explain what happened to the other three men. But this is just focusing on Jeremy because he's the one that jumped through. So the links are in the description box below. Um, Mountain Iron, Duluth in Minnesota, where he's from, where he went missing, has a high, considering murder, kidnapping, robbery, and drug related crime rate, considering. But I've put the crime statistics in the description box below. So that's what I think happened. I think he went down to do some sort of oh, drug deal, drug trade. He was either a mule or was looking to do some dealing. And I think with the amount that his phone was going off, because he wasn't expecting to be there past 7:30. He left the hospital at 5:30. I think he was expecting, he told his mother he'd be back by 7:30, blah, blah, blah. And she got nervous. And I think the fact that she was getting nervous and was constantly contacting him, she was starting to sense, that mother's intuition, that woman's intuition. I think she started sensing something wasn't right already, that he'd run into trouble, not realizing that he was trying to do this thing around people who were already nervous being around him. I don't think he was known to these people before and he came by recommendation or something. And I think as soon as she knew he was around them, she picked up on the fact her boy was in danger. But I think, unfortunately, with her constant messaging and that, it was spooking them. So when he realised that they were getting a bit anxious and paranoid, that's when he answered the phone and said, "Quit calling," because I think it was getting him into trouble and he knew it. So then, when the phone went dead, from 11 o'clock. I think they said after 11 his phone was switched off. I think once they dealt with him, they took his phone to check his phone out to see who was reaching out to him, and then of course realizing that he had nothing to do with the police. But they either thought he was a cop or an informant or someone who was dodgy and risky, and he really wasn't. He was just a dad with three young children who was broke, who knew he needed to make money because he wanted to do right by his kids and his baby mamas. It's just, I think that I don't think they're going to find him. I'll be very surprised if they find him anywhere near the area where he went missing, if they find him at all. His ATV was never found. None of his possessions were ever found. I think they, yeah, took him elsewhere. But like I said, it also corroborates what I said about the Brandon Swanson disappearance. So, yeah, I just when I try and focus on his body, I just keep seeing like seizures, like his body shaking, but that can also be indicative of a head wound. and foaming at the mouth. It's just I'm not seeing a weapon. I'm just seeing a head wound. Well, sorry, I'm just sorry. I'm just seeing him like having a seizure of some sort and foaming at the mouth. So they may have hit him about the head, but they also could have forced him to take something. Because from what I understand about fentanyl, you don't need very much for it to become fatal. I don't know if you foam at the mouth if you take too much fentanyl, but I'm going to assume so. I'm probably going to need to look that up. I only smoke weed. I wouldn't have a clue about any of that sort of stuff. And I haven't had weed in like since late November of last year, beginning of December of last year. Like it's been months, months and months and months and months. So I had to do my own research into my drug poisoning with the cocaine and opioids and all that. I had to do research into all of that to find out that it was called Ghost. Remember when Rocio used that name on Instagram, Ghost in the Pizza, 2 years before Chris put cocaine on the pizza, and then tried to blame the guy who sold me the weed? Or he put it in the weed. He put the cocaine in the weed. So, yeah, they're already finger pointing. Chris is already pointing the finger at Mike. That's the guy who sold me the weed. Chris paid for it, by the way. Took me to go and pick it up and everything. Had the opioids in it. I've got the screenshots where he's talking about I'm the first person in the world to try this weed. I'm the only one in the world to sample this weed. That's how I knew it. They'd laced it with something. Opioids, according to my blood test that I demanded they take when I got locked up. So yeah, so I had to look up all the drug terms, and I couldn't tell you if ice is crack. Um, I I I don't know. Do you smoke meth or is that a pill? Like I honestly I don't know. I only know weed and mushrooms, and yeah, that's it. Ayahuasca and all of that, peyote, the organic stuff. Um, but yeah, I couldn't tell you any names of any of the street drugs or the chemical stuff or anything like that. So I will look up to see whether seizures and foaming at the mouth is a side effect of a fentanyl overdose. Because from what I understood, fentanyl is what they use when you have an anaesthetic or something. When they is what they give you when you go under anaesthetic when you have a operation. So I will have a look, but that's what I was being shown. So either it's something like they got him to take a OD of fentanyl, or they some sort of whack to the head where he was having a seizure on the ground and foaming at the mouth. So anyway, so that's my 2 cents. And if his mother does hear this and she wants to talk, my email, themysteryinsidehistory at atomicmail.io, is in the description box, and she's more than welcome to reach out, and I'll try and see if I can see any more for her to try and help her get some closure. But I hope this helps. I know it's maybe not necessarily anything a mother wants to hear, and I'm a mum with two teenage boys about ready to step into manhood and that. So I can't imagine the nightmare she's going through. She's living my worst nightmare as a mother, being separated from my babies and not knowing how they're doing, and that is my worst nightmare. And Chris knew that, which is why they targeted my reputation as a mother, because they knew that I was proud of my boys and proud of being a mum, and that I had a fantastic relationship with my sons before he destroyed my reputation. He knew the one thing. There were two things, well, actually three things that he knew I wasn't going to stand for. Being called a whore, because I've been untouched by a man for nearly 11 and a half years, and I pride myself on my chastity. Um, a liar. I've I have worked my ass off to purify myself of any of my sins, and a bad mother. And it's all the things that he knew I wasn't going to stand for. But all the things that he accused me of is now the reason why I've turned into a supernatural spooky bitch. Because I'm going to stand my ground with my staff in my hand and speak my truth, proclaim my truth until I get justice. Because he called me the three things you should never call me: a bad mother, a liar, and a whore. Because a narcissist will always blame you for the things they're guilty of. He's a bad father, he's a liar, and he's a whore. He's got like 4 or 5 girlfriends on the go at once, and they all know about each other, and it's really sick because I know for a fact he doesn't use protection when he sleeps with any of them. And he does things with the bottom with men as well. So having unprotected sex, hiding the fact that he's bi and does bottom based things. God only knows what he's passing on to the people he's having sex with. So, yeah, so I'm not going to stand for being called um, loose when I even said to the police that they could send a gynecologist to give me a checkup and they'd say that I haven't had any activity down there in a long time. Like tumbleweed, open my legs, tumbleweed will come out. That's how long it's been. Right, so I'm going to go. Went off on a tangent there, but it's because I was fed drugs, and I'm just wondering if if what he's saying is he was fed drugs too, because then if they found his body, it would just look like he had a overdose. But it's a clean way to take someone out, and I don't know if that's a thing. I'll investigate. And if I'm right, I'll put links in the description box whether drug dealers force people to take drugs to make their make their murder look like an overdose. So I'll look that up right now. And if I'm right, I'll put links in the description box. But if his mum Debbie's out there, sorry for the loss of your husband, Jeremy. Um, but if you want to talk, my email's in the description box. I'll speak to you later. Ka kite.